Have you ever had a premonition that has come true? I've actually had several in my life, but the most disturbing one that I had was about my mom. I was actually visiting her in Hawaii, and as I was leaving to take my luggage to the car to drive back to the airport, it was as though I walked through a tunnel and it said, "Something is going to happen to your mother and you're going to be back here in a week." It completely took me by surprise. I had never heard something so clear in my life before. And so I was stunned, I was shocked, I didn't know what to do. But I'm going to share with you 3 things that I learned about what happens when you get a premonition. Number 1, it's take them seriously. Number 2, it's to help you prepare. And number 3, things are working for us. So let me get started on this story of what happened with my mom. She was actually in Kauai for a month, and I was living in Connecticut at that time. And she had called and said, "Hey, you've got to come stay with us. It would be so much fun." She was there with my stepfather. And so I thought that would be wonderful, but I didn't really have the money to take a flight there at that point. So I said, let me check my points. And sure enough, I had enough to fly not only there, but in first class. And I think it was for like 40,000 points or something. I mean, it was crazy how, what a great opportunity it was. So I flew there and I arrived and we were having such a great time, but it was really interesting because things kept happening that kept me near my mom's side. For example, I was going to go out and, I have got friends on the island and go visit friends and go hiking, but I ended up having a flat tire. So that kept me with my mom. And then the next time we had rescheduled to go hiking, I woke up and I wasn't feeling well. So again, I stayed with my mom. And then the other thing that happened while I was staying with her is that she was feeling really uneasy about about death and about feeling like she hadn't completed things in her life, and she was feeling very uneasy about it. So I said, well, Mom, let me take you on a guided meditation and kind of help you release these feelings, because I just felt like they were some blocks that she was having, and she was just having a hard time like getting rid of them. So I took her on a guided meditation, and I usually ask for a guide to come in, and her little cat came. Her name was Senta Cat, and she came in, and my mom was so happy because she had passed away about a year ago. So this little Senta kitty was her guide on this guided meditation that I took her on. And she went in and I had her go into her garden, and I had her pull all the weeds of things that she no longer needed to worry about, and then to plant new seeds and to really be able to embrace this part of her life that she was in and to let go of all those things that had been worrying her. So after the meditation, she said it had shifted dramatically. She felt so much better. And then a few days later, it was time for me to go. Oh, and I also got another day with her because my flight back to New York got canceled. And so I got another whole day with her. So I had all of these experiences with her in this week that I stayed with her. And then on my way out to the rental car to drive back to the airport, that is when I walked through and I said, it's kind of like a tunnel or almost like a threshold. Invisible, I didn't see anything, but it was just, I was walking and all of a sudden I hear a voice. And it wasn't, I'm trying to explain it. I don't know if it was a voice as much as just this knowing, but it was almost like it was dropped into my head in one complete thought. And the thought was, something is going to happen to your mom and you're going to be back here in a week. And it shook me. I did not know or understand what that meant. I did not want to accept it. I just dismissed it. I did not mention it to my mother. I got in my car and drove to the airport and flew home. Interestingly, as soon as I got back to New York, my now ex-husband and I, we flew almost the next day to go to Ireland for our nephew's confirmation. And so we were there for a week, and my mom and I were still in conversation. And we actually had another family member die that week, one of our cousins. And so my mom and I were talking about that and her funeral. And so then I arrived back home. It was a week later. My mother had left me a message on my answering machine saying that she didn't want to leave. It was her last day. She wanted, she couldn't believe the month had gone so fast, and, that she was not happy to be leaving. And I did not call her back because I like I said, I had just gotten home and I was tired. And so then later, about 3 hours later, the phone rang again, and it was my mom's number, but it was my stepdad. And he said, Lisa, something's happened to your mom. We think she had a stroke. You need to come back. And I almost fainted at that moment, because that was almost exactly what I heard a week prior from Spirit. And so that is the second thing, is that, you know, they were warning me, they were preparing me, they were actually getting me ready for this moment, because it was not something that I was anticipating. My mom and I had gone walking and swimming while we were staying together, and she was in good health, so this was completely out of the norm. So I quickly unpacked my bag from being in Ireland and packed my bag to go to Hawaii, and I actually laid down on my bed in order to just rest for a few hours before I was going to be picked up to be taken back to the airport to fly back to Hawaii. And so this is, again, you know, like this whole premonition, it was preparing me. And I laid down on the bed, and all of a sudden, my eyes were closed, I was wide awake, but I felt and sensed a cat jump up on the bed. And it was not my cat. I had cats, but they weren't in my room. It was this little Centi-kitty that came to my mom when I was doing that guided meditation for her. And I could hear her purring, and I could feel her, you know how cats do that kneading motion. I could feel that on the bed. And then all of a sudden, my mom's energy, her voice appeared out of nowhere. Again, my eyes were closed. I was wide awake, but I did not want to open my eyes. And I heard my mom say, "You told me we'd be able to communicate when I went to the other side." And it was just this overwhelming feeling and knowing that it was her and her voice and her love. It was like a tsunami of love that washed over my entire body. And she just was telling me how much she loved me and how much she loved being my mom. She adopted me as a baby, and she had always been my savior, because that's another whole story. But you know, being adopted is very, as I've realized now, I've been going through a lot of trauma, unpacking the trauma of being adopted, and even though it was all for the right reasons, and my mom, you know, who adopted me was amazing, you know, there's still trauma around being given away as a baby. So I always viewed her as my savior. And so interestingly, on my way to the airport, I called my brother and said, "Oh my God, Mom just came to visit me." And he said, "She came to visit me too." And she showed my brother what house he would be buying and how he was going to fix it up, and all of these amazing things that happened. And so we were both blown away by this communication with her. Well, the plot thickens, because as much as I thought she had passed because she came to visit me, I did not want to call my stepdad and get that confirmation, because I still had to fly about 12 hours to get to Kauai, and I didn't want to know that she had passed. So I just got on the plane and I arrived. I immediately went to the hospital and went to the ICU, which is where she was. And when I walked into the room, she actually sat up and looked at me straight into my eyes. And then she was out again, and she was unconscious from that point forward. But I was shocked, because I literally thought she had passed away the night before. But it shows me that, again, this premonition that I had, and then her coming to visit me, it was preparing me. Both my brother and I knew that she was going to die at this point. However, my stepdad was not on board with this idea at all. He wanted to fly her back to Minnesota, take her to the Mayo Clinic, and get her all this help. But she was not being responsive. She was not waking up. And so in the next couple days, my brother flew out. And so the other thing is that when these things happen, like a premonition, and then it starts to unfold and it's happening, the third thing is that everything is helping us. You know, everything that we are told, it's happening for us. It's not against us. It's happening for us. So again, my stepdad was not happy about the fact that my mom, you know, was potentially going to die. We didn't know if she would ever wake up, but she had been unconscious now for 4 or 5 days. So interestingly, another coincidence happened, and that is that a dear friend of my stepdad's family, who's one of the top neurosurgeons in Minneapolis, which is where my mom and stepdad were from, was coming to Kauai for vacation. So he came immediately from the airport to the hospital, and assessed my mom. And he told Max that, you know, unfortunately, even if she wakes up, she most likely will not be able to care for herself or even talk. And so he recommended that we proceed to put her in hospice rather than try to, you know, do anything to minimize what was happening, because he truly felt there was no hope for that. And so, as sad as that was, my stepdad agreed that she did not want that. We had a living will, and she did not want to be kept alive just for the sake of being kept alive. So we decided to go ahead and enroll her in hospice, and the doctors were saying, you know, it could be weeks before she passes. I mean, I had no idea, but basically, if you know, the person is put into hospice, it could be from lack of food or water that they actually pass away from. And that was shocking to me. The whole thing was shocking to me, because again, my mom was healthy and well up until this very moment when I got that premonition. And so anyway, my brother and my stepdad and I decided to go to lunch because we needed to figure out how we were going to proceed, because this could take weeks, if not a month or so, before she passed. We went and had a lovely lunch. It was beautiful. And we talked about what we were going to do. And as we were approaching the car, I got a phone call from the nurse saying, it looks like your mom is transitioning. We rushed back to the hospital. And sure enough, we got to her bedside, held her hands, and within 5 minutes, she took her last breath. And so I just wanted to share this story about premonitions and about why you need to take them seriously. And also to know that, you know, they are here for us to help us prepare, because I would have been completely shocked. I was shocked when I got the premonition, but then over that week and then when it actually happened, I wasn't actually surprised, which helped me so much. And then the whole idea that everything is happening for us, it's not happening to us. And to know that, for example, that doctor was coming from Minnesota to help assure my stepdad that, you know, my mom really did need to transition and that there was nothing more that we could do for her. So I would love to hear about your experiences. Have you had premonitions? What happened? Did they come true? And the other thing is that, you know, sometimes we do get information and it turns out not to be true. And so what is that all about? I will do a follow-up video about what to do when that happens. But in the meantime, if you'd like to subscribe and like this video, I would love it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Aloha.